Okay, so as I mentioned, this is going to be our first lesson here. This is from Unit 1, Box A, out of that first learning guide. We are doing a little bit of a review of integers here. So we're going to look at multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting integers. So first thing, what are integers? Well, integers are all of the positive and negative whole numbers and 0. Okay, so what are some examples of integers? Well, 2 is an integer, 4 is an integer, negative 10 is an integer, 1,000,000 is an integer. As long as it's a whole number, okay, positive, negative, or 0, it's what we call an integer. So something like 2.5 or 3/4 are not integers. Okay. So multiplication and division. Okay. The first thing you want to remember about multiplying and dividing integers is, I should make myself a little bit of space here, that basically what you're interested in is you're interested in the signs of these things. Okay? So if you have two integers that are positive, okay, positive times a positive, what is the sign of the answer going to be? Well, it's going to be a positive as well. Okay? If you've got a negative and you're multiplying it by a negative, what is the sign of your answer going to be? Positive. It's going to be positive as well. Okay? What if you have a positive multiplied by a negative? In this case, it's going to be a negative. And of course, if you're doing a negative times a positive, it's going to give you a negative as well. So all of those apply to division as well. Okay? Whoops. That's not how you spell division. So we got some examples here to sort of illustrate this. So if we've got 2 times 5, well, this is pretty easy. I just multiply 2 times 5. If I don't see any signs on these, I know that they are positive. So what's my answer going to be here, clearly? Yeah, and I'm going to put positive 10 just so you know, but that positive in there is completely optional. Negative 4 times positive 7. Now, usually you won't see that positive sign in there. You'll just see the 7, and you're supposed to assume that it's positive. But what does this give us here? Negative what? You're right on the sign there because it's negative times positive. What number is going to go with that? 28. Okay. 9 times negative 3 here. Think first, go ahead. How did you know it was negative? Because it's a positive and a negative. Beautiful. Now, a lot of times you'll see something like this. Negative 2 and then a negative 10 in brackets. You don't see anything to tell you what sort of operation you're doing. But when you see something like this, this means multiply these two things together. So if you see something in front of a set of brackets and no sign or operation in between them, this means multiply. So think of this as negative 2 times negative 10. Okay? What's the answer going to be here? Ashley? 20. Positive or negative? Positive, absolutely. Same thing here. We've got a string of things together, no signs in between them, so we know that we are multiplying everything together. Now, if you've got 3 things and you need to multiply it, sometimes you can do this in 2 steps. Okay? You can say, I'm going to take these first 2, and I'll multiply them together first. So negative 2 times negative 4, what is that going to give us? Positive 8. And then I'm going to take that and multiply it by my negative 6. So then I've got a positive times a negative, so I know this is going to give me a negative. And what number is going to go along with this? 48. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3 negative signs. Our answer is negative. If we've got 2 negative signs, our answer is positive. So it's kind of like anytime we have an odd number of negative signs and we're multiplying, we end up with like a negative sign left over, and our answer is negative. If you have an even number of negative signs, we're going to end up with a positive answer. Now, over here, we're just doing a little bit of division here. Negative 15 divided by negative 5, same rules apply. We got negative divided by negative, so we know our answer is going to be positive. Positive what, though? Division here, what do you think?
3 negative, well, positive 3.
Positive 3, absolutely. Okay. And of course, the other form of division here, where we write this in fractional form, 8 divided by negative 4, negative 2. Yeah. Okay. So addition, so multiplication, division of integers, pretty straightforward. Okay. Addition and subtraction is sometimes a little bit tricky. Okay. So there are a lot of ways that you might have learned how to add and subtract integers. Okay. What I'm going to show you here is using a number line here. So you've got a number line in your book here. It goes from negative 10 to positive 10. And the rule that you follow here are written on kind of the two ends of this number line here. If you're adding a negative number, you move towards the negative end of the number line. If you're adding a positive number, you move towards the positive end, or towards the right. Okay? So if I'm doing something like 3 plus negative 4, I start at this first number here. I start at the 3. So where's 3? Right there? I'm adding negative 4, so I'm going towards the negative numbers. How far am I going? I'm going 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. I ended up on negative 1, so my answer is negative 1. Negative 5 plus 12, let's see. I start at negative 5. I'm adding 12, so I'm going 12 steps. It's a positive, so I've got to be moving to the right towards positive numbers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. My answer is going to be 7, because that's where I ended up. If you've got 3 numbers, again, we can do this in 2 steps. Let's do the first one, sort of the first 2 numbers first here. 8 plus negative 7, so I'm going to start at 8. I'm adding a negative, so I'm going towards the negative numbers. How many am I going? I'm going 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I end up at 1. So now I've got 1 plus negative 2. So I start at that 1 and 1, 2. I end up at negative 1. And there's my final answer. Okay. So addition is pretty easy. Okay, you're either moving towards the negative end, you're moving towards the positive end. Subtraction is very similar. It's almost exactly like adding things, except, well, except you do something a little bit opposite here. You subtract a number by adding the number with the opposite sign. So for instance, if you see something like 2 minus 5, instead of subtracting off, this is actually 2 minus positive 5, right? Look at this second number. It's got a positive sign. We want to add a number with the opposite sign. So instead of subtracting, we change our subtraction to addition. Okay? And then instead of subtracting a positive number, we are going to add on a negative number. Okay? So instead of doing 2 minus plus 5, we're going to be doing 2 plus negative 5. Because then we can do it exactly the same way that we did before. Okay? So first one here is almost exactly like we just did. 3 minus 5, we're going to change this to 3 plus negative 5. And then we can work out what this is. We start at 3. We're adding negative 5, so we're going 5 steps to negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We end up at negative 2. Okay. if we've got negative 9 minus negative 6, okay, what are we going to change this to? We'll keep the negative 9. We always keep that first number. What's it going to become? Absolutely. Okay? Change subtraction to addition. Change whatever sign we see in that second number. So negative 9 plus positive 6. So we're going to start at negative 9. We're going 6 positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We end up at negative 3. Right. This last one here, again, let's do it in 2 steps. Negative 8 minus negative 7. What are we going to change negative 8 minus negative 7 into if we want to do some addition here? What do you think? Plus what? We change subtraction to addition, and what do we do with this sign in here? We change it to the opposite of whatever it is. So it's going to be negative 8 plus, not negative 7, but positive 7, exactly. Okay? And we'll keep the minus 5 exactly the same. Okay? Now, we can add these guys. We start at negative 8. We're going 7 positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We end up at negative 1. So now we have negative 1 minus 5. Or negative 1 minus positive 5. Let's change this into an addition here. Negative 1 minus positive 5 becomes somebody else here. What do you think? I'm going to ask one of the Hannahs. Hannah. Okay. Negative 1 plus negative 5. There we go. All right, now how do we do negative 1 plus negative 5? Well, let's see. We start at negative 1. We're already there. And we go 5 to the negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We ended up at negative 6. Okay? And we are done. So that's our review of adding, subtracting, and multiplying and dividing integers. Okay?